Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and the purpose of today's video is not going to be another video trying to tell you that the Outer Worlds is just like Fallout New Vegas, even though the person making the video probably never actually played Fallout New Vegas. No, that is not the purpose of today's video. Today, though, we are going to be discussing one of the biggest stories of the week, obviously Fallout 76, but I'm going to take a little bit of a different view on things. I also want to discuss something going on that ties in regards to what Ubisoft is doing this week and how I see the two situations tying in together. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of different view on the Fallout 76 hubbub that's been going on this week. Now, of course, I could sit here and make multiple videos acting like I'm shocked, acting like I'm surprised or somehow outraged by this situation with Fallout 76, but the fact is, I can't sit here and pretend like I'm shocked with the situation with Fallout 76, with the further monetization of the game, because if you go back to my videos from last year, go back and look, August, September, October last year, before Fallout 76 came out, I predicted most of this happening. I said this is exactly what Bethesda was planning, what they were going to do. I've pretty much predicted everything that they've done as far as monetizing the game to this point. The only thing that I said that I thought they were going to do, which they haven't done yet, is outright sell the perk card packs. That's still the only holdout from the thing that I predicted they were going to do, because now they are trying to sell the unlimited storage, which I said is probably where they're going to go, because in a looter shooter type game like this, where you're collecting gear all the time, that is a very valuable resource, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Today's video is also going to be addressed to specifically Fallout 76 fans, people that are still playing the game, people that are, more importantly, still defending the game no matter what Bethesda does. And I don't want to get confrontational or angry with you. I just want to point out some basic facts and point out some stuff that Bethesda is clearly doing. And I want to also show how the comparison with what happened with Ubisoft this week and their earnings call, I want to see how this all ties in and explain why, as people who are still playing this game, you are the most important people involved in this equation right now. And you have to understand that there are lots and lots of former Bethesda fans, lapsed Bethesda fans, which includes myself. I know people think that I'm a big Bethesda hater, but I used to be one of the biggest Bethesda fans you would ever find. So people like myself, we are going to have to rely on you if there's going to be any crack and change at Bethesda. Now, how does this tie into what Ubisoft had to say this week? Well, they had their big earnings call with investors, and they had to admit that due to the lack of success that Breakpoint had recently, and the fact that the Division 2 sales were not as good as they thought they were going to be, Ubisoft has now realized that they need to take a step back and rethink how they're rolling these games out, especially how it goes with the monetization. They said in their own earnings call that players are not responding and are not pleased with the direction that they're taking their games, and they have realized that they have to make changes. How does this tie into Bethesda? Well, the difference here with Bethesda is that Breakpoint got terrible reviews, both from critics and from players. Same thing happened with Fallout 76. The difference is, though, is that Breakpoint and Ubisoft, they didn't get a bunch of people who were sitting there being die-hard defenders of the game. They went right to Ubisoft and said, no, this is unacceptable. The difference with Fallout 76 is Bethesda is there is still a core group of people who will insist that this is a great game, even though by any industry standards, if you want to look at the graphics, if you want to look at technical performance, the gameplay mechanics, the gunplay, if you want to look at the story and the overall writing, just look at every aspect of the game's balance, the game's microtransactions. Nothing in Fallout 76 is up to industry standards, except maybe, I guess you could say, it has a pretty good soundtrack. But other than that, there is nothing in this game that is on par, not even remotely close to on par with other games in this genre. And if you want to disagree with me on that, that's fine. If you want to say that everything in the game is great, it's totally fine. I'm not going to try to talk you out of that. At this point, you've made up your mind on what you think the game is. Everyone has made up their mind on what they think the game is, on the quality and everything else. I'm not here to talk you out of this. But what I want to point out is the clear and obvious path that Bethesda is taking, despite their assurances and despite what they continue to try to sell to the public. What's going on with Fallout 76 is it's not going to attract new players. So what Bethesda is desperately trying to do here is to monetize the ever-living hell out of the remaining player base. And with this new subscription service, and we're going to talk about it, and I know the big issue with that is the private servers, but it's not actually the private servers that Bethesda is most concerned with here. And that may sound like it's incorrect, but it's not. I'm going to explain why. Because the real reason that Bethesda is trying to sell the subscription service is not necessarily because of these servers. The reason is because they want to sell all the extraneous stuff. They want you to sell you that fast travel tent and the unlimited stash space for your crafting materials. Because when you are someone who plays a game like this, because I have been sucked into games like this before, so I understand exactly the mentality of what you do in the game. And what Bethesda has been doing, because they don't have a big player base, is they are purposefully and systematically attacking the direct needs of the players who play this game all the time. The people who put in 20, 30 hours a week of this game still. The people who are absolutely hooked on the game. They are directly attacking what you need most in the game. They're selling you stash space for your crafting components, which is a major part of this game. It's going to be probably more weight carrying around in your stash space for crafting materials than anything else. You need crafting materials in this game. It's one of the primary things they sell. And look at the other things that they've tried selling you. They tried selling repair kits and scrap kits and refrigeration space. These are all day-to-day items that people need in the game. This is where they're attacking your wallet. The private servers, sure, you're going to lure in people like that, but that's not going to entice every player that's still playing the game. But what will entice every player that's still playing the game, especially if you're playing in a group, is these time-saving features. And that's why when they say, we looked at the metrics and we decided, this is the direction we need to go. Shucks, guys. Sorry we had to go back on the cosmetic-only promise that we told you about 200 times a day after E3 up until the game launched. Every single post we made, every snarky post from Pete Hines on Twitter, every single time we did an interview with Todd Howard or anyone else from the Bethesda Game Studios team, it was repeated time and time again that they were not going to sell anything affecting gameplay, and then they went back on that. Same way they went back on saying that they weren't going to make the game a battle royale. They know better. The fact is, you have got to understand, anyone who still wants to defend Bethesda, please, you have got, just take this one thing from the video. You have got to stop listening to what they say because they are only lying to you. If you say, well, don't they have a right to change their mind and change tactics? Sure they do, except this isn't them changing their mind. If this was just coincidence and this is just them, oh, we had no idea that we were going to go down this path, then how come someone like me who has no connection with the company predicted exactly what they were going to do with the monetization every step of the way? They started almost immediately after launch. Just with it, don't forget, it was like 8 weeks after the game launch when they started introducing microtransactions that did have some minimal gameplay effect. It only took them a few weeks to go back on their promise. And now, here, almost a year later, now they're being like, oh, this is why we're doing it. Oh, yep, now we've decided we're going to have to go back on that. Well, they decided that a long time ago. They're just now admitting to it. Because let's not forget, this didn't start with repair kits. This started way back with those untouchable outfits. And people at the time said, Coach, you're making a big deal out of nothing. This is just a temporary, minor health buff. It only lasts for a limited time, and then it's gone. You're making too much of this. I said, okay, fine. I'm just pointing out this is where it starts, and it's going to get worse. And it has progressively gotten worse to the point now where they're trying to sell you a $7 fake refrigerator to keep a very small amount of food a little bit fresher in the game. Another roadblock that this game puts up. You can't just play this game like other Fallout games. You don't have that option. It's always going to be pushing you towards your food is rotting. You got to eat. You got to drink. You got to repair your armor. In fact, for a game where they're trying to sell you crafting material for your camp all the time, the thing is, I almost find that most of the time, if I actually need or to use material, I don't have it to build with. I need it to repair my armor. If you notice, every time I've ever posted a video, you'll see the little icon at the bottom of the screen pointing out that my armor's broken. That's because you're constantly repairing everything that you have. And you really have to repair your guns. You can't kill enemies unless you repair your weapons. So I just say, okay, well, I don't have the stuff to repair the guns. And that's how the game is. So they sell you the fix. And they're still doing that now. This subscription, these private servers, which, by the way, are not private servers at all. The people are trying to say, oh, they're running dedicated hardware just for you. No, they're not. They're not running proprietary servers for each person that signs up for this. That's not what's happening at all. And that's been proven it's within the first 24 hours that was proven. People were skeptical about it right away, but people were defending, oh, no, this is a bargain. Lots of games charge you for server space. And as I was trying to point out to a couple of people in some conversations I was having online, well, yeah, there's games that charge you for server space if it's actually a dedicated server. That's not what Bethesda's doing here. And don't be fooled. Bethesda always cuts corners with stuff like this. I mean, that's how they fix their games. They only do minimal fixes. They never actually dig into the code and make real fixes in the games. That's always been their problem. They rely on modders to do that. Which, by the way, now they've locked the modding behind a paywall. $100 a year paywall for modders. How do you think that's going to affect the modding scene? Honestly, explain to me. Do you think that that's going to encourage modders? Do you think you're going to get more people jumping on board to pay to mod the game? That is exactly what's happening. The modders are going to have to pay Bethesda if they want to mod the game. So forget about not paid mods. Another Bethesda lie. Forget about that. Worry about even getting people who are willing to bother modding this game. People who maybe were holding out for these private servers. Now you want them to pay to mod the game. Honestly, answer me. Do you think that's going to negatively or positively impact the modding scene? What do you really think? Come on, let's be honest. And then they delay the one big update that people were looking for all the time. No, there was no one clamoring for a battle royale for this game, but they rushed that right out. They had no problem throwing that right out. But the one thing that people were saying they wanted this entire time, they delayed that. And let's not forget, they're delaying it into Q1 of next year. So at the earliest, that's when you'll see that. There's no guarantee they won't delay it again. But let's look at the facts. They're now going from E3 when they announced it. You're looking at a minimum of 8 months where they're trying to keep the current players on the hook for Wastelanders. They're baiting you along. They're just baiting you along. And whether you like the game or not, you have got to speak up to Bethesda and let them know that the way they're handling this game is unacceptable. Because that's what people have been doing with other games, and it has been working. But the Bethesda hardcore player base, they've circled the wagon around this game. And they just think that everyone who has a problem with the game is a blind hater. The biggest criticism I always see is, well, the only people complaining about the game are people that don't play the game at all. Well, there's a massive hole in that line of thinking, and that is the rallying cry of people who still play this game. The only people who attack the game are people who don't play it. Well, why do you think there's so many people who don't play it? Todd Howard himself has no problem pointing out millions of people a year still playing Skyrim, still playing the old Fallout game. He loves pointing that out and bringing that up. Why do you think that is? Well, for one reason, modders have kept their games alive for many years, adding new content. You still hear stuff about people adding big mods to Fallout 4, like Fallout Miami, the Cascadia update. You hear stuff about Skyblivion and all these big mods that people get excited for because modders keep the games alive. Well, you can wave goodbye to that with Fallout 76. You're going to have a much less active modding community. But the other reason why so many people play those old games is because people like those old games. But they didn't feel ripped off by Bethesda for those games. Even though, let's not forget, Bethesda is the one who introduced paying for skins in games with the horse armor back with Oblivion. Let's not forget that little tidbit. But the fact is, Bethesda used to have millions of people that would be fans of their products that would go out and tell other people, yes, I like Bethesda games, I play Bethesda games, go out and try these games, they're great. And now they've lost so much goodwill that you have turned away so many people with Fallout 76. So when you want to say that the only people who complain about Fallout 76 are people who don't play it, well, these are people that would have played it that are complaining. These are people that formerly would have gotten on board with a Fallout game. And the reason why they're not playing is because there's so much to complain about. That's why they're not playing. So the big hole in that theory is that you think that it's only people who are just blind hating on the game, but it's people who are very disappointed in what Bethesda has turned into. And the reason why this continues to happen with Fallout 76 is because of this group of people that still will defend them and tell everyone, don't worry about it. They know what's right. Bethesda is doing what's right for us, even though all of their actions point the other direction. And now they're doubling, tripling down on the remaining player base, and they're going to continue to push this monetization as far as they possibly can. And what happened to, they were going to run out private test servers before they started pushing out updates. So now they push out this big, very expensive update where they want a subscription fee for it. And what happens? Well, you turn around, and this big expensive update, it seems like they didn't test it at all. What they should have done, if they had any semblance of how to have proper public relations, is they should have offered people who, let's say people who are already over level 100, who have logged in within the last 30 days. So active players that have shown that they are dedicated to playing the game. What they should have done is something like offering access to these private servers for, say, a month before people would have to offer them one free month just to test it out before rolling this out to the masses and expecting people to give you $100 a year for another broken Bethesda update. And now, all these reports come flooding in. I'm losing my crafting material. This isn't working. And what's hilarious is people are like, how come anyone on my friends list can join my private server? Well, it's because Bethesda didn't actually set up private sessions. All they did was cordon off various instances in the game, and they just said, okay, this is now private. And all it really is you wouldn't have people who weren't on your friends list able to join, because the way the game has always worked is you can join anyone on your friends list. You can just hop into their session. You can't necessarily join their party, but you can hop into their session anytime. There's nothing they can do to stop you because there's no invite-only option in this game, which is really the only thing that people wanted all along. People didn't necessarily want private servers. People wanted to be able to play privately. It's not necessarily the same thing. There's lots and lots and lots of games that are looter shooters like Fallout 76 where you can just select invite only and then only your friends can play, or friends only. Most games have these options and don't lock them behind a paywall. But Bethesda, of course, thinks that they have this special game, and they try to act like this is some grand MMO, even though they can only have a max of 24 people on the server anyway. And now they're like, oh, well, we have to charge for these private servers. And now, right now, currently, they're charging you full price for these private servers, and they're actually worse than a regular lobby because you can have only 8 people in these lobbies. You can't even have a full lobby. They cut the size of the lobby down to about 30% of a normal lobby. So you're actually playing, yes, you're playing privately, but it's actually, there's less people involved. It's not even as good of a lobby. You can hold less people in it. But go ahead and pay them. This is my problem. This is the point of this video. Is the power is with the small group of people still playing this game. You've got to put a stop to this. Only you can do this. Bethesda's not going to stop themselves. They're going to keep pushing this. They're going to keep throwing this monetization at you. And I know that there's been this sort of like cult-like following, and people that still play the game have this mentality like everyone is against them on the planet. And in reality, people just don't want Bethesda to keep making worse and worse and worse decisions and making their games and their franchises worse. At this point, I'm convinced it's a lost cause. I have no faith for Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. But for the people who think that people who blindly hate on the game, that they're just evil people, like mean people, and you're the good people for defending them, you're actually the ones doing the harm. You're going to make Starfield worse. You're going to make Elder Scrolls 6 worse by supporting Bethesda and telling them that these practices, it's all right, Bethesda. It's no big deal. We'll keep accepting it. We'll keep paying for it. I mean, the fact that people rushed out and bought the subscription day one is insane to me to begin with. I knew people were going to do that. I know personally people that will do it, that said they were going to do that. So it wasn't, I mean, it's not surprising, I guess. Well, it is, though. I don't understand that mentality of why you would continue to pay for this clearly broken product. I still played it today. The frame rate's still awful. You saw earlier in this video, this is a clip from a couple weeks ago, enemies still floating through the floor. For a game that people will tell you up and down, oh, it's fixed now, it's fixed now. It's not fixed now. I've said this many times about many games. Just because it's better than it was doesn't mean it's good or fixed. It's just better than it was. And Fallout might be running better than it was. Granted, it's running better than it was last November. It still runs horribly. It's still not a good game. I'm sorry. But if any of us want to have any enjoyment from future Bethesda games, if you want Elder Scrolls 6 and you want that to be a good game, and you're someone who's still playing Fallout 76 and defending it, you have got to understand that the only way that those games are going to be improved or better than what Bethesda has been trotting out with Fallout 76 is if you put your foot down now and tell them that you're not going to do this. You got to stop paying for stuff in the Atom store. I don't want to hear about you can earn atoms easily. That is not the point of this conversation. I don't want to get into I notice I didn't even mention the words pay to win at all through any of this. Because that's not the conversation I want to have. What I want to talk about is you have got to stop letting Pete Hines and Todd Howard and the rest of the Bethesda marketing team and the communications team and the community team on Reddit and wherever else. You've got to let them stop lying to you and pushing you around and keep making the monetization worse. Because like I said, it's only going to make their future games that much worse. If you want Elder Scrolls 6 to be even a remotely decent game, put your foot down now with Fallout 76. Snap out of it. That's all I gotta say. That's it from me, Coach Toolshed. I'm going to play The Outer Worlds. Actually, I got something real quick for you guys. I've been absent for a few weeks. I know. I've been playing a ton of games. I want to do a review for at least one or two of the games that I did, but I've beaten like 5 or 6 games recently. So let me just give you a quick rundown. You guys let me know down in the comments if there's any reviews in particular that you guys want to hear. So recently I have played and beaten Frostpunk Console Edition. I beat multiple different scenarios, played through that a few times. Very good game. I can do a review for that. I've gotten the Platinum Trophy for Code Vein. I've beaten that game 4 times now, so I can give you a review for that. I just last night beat Children of Morta. It's a small indie game from 11-Bit Studios. Coincidentally, it's the same studio involved with Frostpunk, but it's a completely different type of game. I beat that last night. I could do a review for that. About a month ago, finished up with Remnant from the Ashes, a game that is actually kind of fun but has some major technical issues. I can do a review for that. And then just recently, in the past few weeks, I went back to a game from last year that was great, Dead Cells, and they've made some balance changes and done some fixes, and I've finally gone back and I've beaten that game now a couple times, so I could do a review on that. If any of you guys are interested in listening to reviews, let me know down in the comments. But anyway, let me know also about the main topic of the video. How do you feel? If only even a couple of people hear this and understand finally what Bethesda's actually doing and just stop supporting this ridiculous ways that Bethesda's going about handling this business, they're only going to make it worse with Fallout 76. It's not going to get better. They're going to keep stringing you along. Wastelanders is coming. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't even see that till 4th of July next year. But anyway, that's it from me, Coach Toolshed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel headed forward. And as always, keep it turned to 11.